broader audience to help explain what's happening in High River. So I know you're a little bit frustrated at us starting a little bit late, but I will just reiterate it's pretty important for them to be here. For anyone who wants to talk to the media, to share your personal story, feel free to, as you're seeing them leave, feel free to go out and do that. We'll continue the meeting on until, I'm hoping till about 8:30. I've got to go and do some more media this evening at about 9 o'clock. But if there are still questions, or if there are still individuals who want to come up to the mic to share your story, my staff will be here to be able to continue to take notes on that. Let me tell you, before I get started, I just want to acknowledge a few people who are here this evening. I have a couple of my colleagues from the legislature, Bruce McAllister, our MLA from Chestermere Rockyview, as well. Joe Anglin, I understand, is on his way. He is our representative from Remy Rocky Mountain House Sundry. Pat Steer, of course, is here from Livingston McLeod. We also have a municipal council here. Betty Hebert is here. She's quite happy to answer any municipal questions we might have. I understand there's also a member of the police commission. Ken Bratt is here. Thanks for being here, Ken. We also have a couple of members of the RCMP here as well. Staff Sergeant Ian Shardlow, who took over the position on July the 26th this year. Thank you for being here. As well as Brent Hawker. And we may have some questions for them later. Hopefully they'll be willing to answer some of those, but I'm delighted to have them here. We also have Jenny Renner, who is the communications person working with Rick Fraser's office. So thank you all for being here. Part of the reason why we're here this evening is that I want to walk through a bit of a timeline to give a bit of context. Because I know that not everybody thinks that I should be raising the issues with the concerns we have with the RCMP. That has been made very clear today. But I'll tell you why I am. And if you want to get up at the mic and tell me that I'm wrong, you know, this is what the town hall is for. You tell me that feedback too. But let me give you the context for what we're dealing with here. First of all, I have to say I don't think that there's any of us who is not grateful for the efforts of the first responders through those first 3 days of the flood. I think they did a tremendous job. They limited the loss of life. We had 3 unfortunate casualties, and I hope that there'll be an inquiry into that a little bit later. But I think that nobody is disputing that our first responders absolutely put our interests first and did and their heroic duties. High River than it did in other communities. While we were watching Mayor Nenshi and Calgary allowing people to wade into their homes and water up to their knees on Day 3, we were still kept out of our communities. I was kicked out of the EOC on the 4th day. One of the things that I raised while I was in the EOC is that I had heard that there were RCMP officers that were kicking down doors and having competitions doing it, whether they could do it in 3 kicks or 5 kicks. And high-fiving each other when it was done. And it was getting around in the neighborhood, it was getting out on Facebook, it was getting out on Twitter, and it was causing them to have some serious communications issues. And I think it was also affecting the impression that they were giving to the community about the job that they were doing. So I did raise that. Maybe one of the reasons I got kicked out of the EOC. Some folks don't like to hear the criticism, but be that as it may. On June the 27th, you'll remember, there was a standoff between residents and the RCMP when a spike belt was let down. On June the 28th is when we heard in the media that several firearms had been taken from individuals' homes. Now, we didn't know how many at that time. We had been told it was a significant number. You'll also remember, I was concerned about this. I thought my role, though, during the entire crisis was to try to bring the temperature down. But I was so concerned about it that I called the Prime Minister's office. And I explained my reasons for concern. You'll recall later that afternoon, he issued a press release saying that he thought the RCMP had far more important things to be focusing on. You'll also recall later that afternoon was when Minister Fraser was sworn in officially and a provincial state of emergency began. And then the very next day, on June the 29th, we began to finally see progress. We began to see people returning home on day 9. Others returned home day 11, others returned home day 13. I still did not want to raise this issue though because we still had a number of members of our community who had not been allowed to go home. So day 25, day 26, as far as the Hampton Hills and Sunrise residents were allowed to go home. I also, on July the 26th, let's also recall that's when New Staff Sergeant Ian Shardlow was sworn in. I had also held a meeting with the property rights advocate, Lee Cuthbert. in this period of time, introducing him to 4 members who had had their homes broken into and their firearms taken. So I wanted to allow our property rights advocate, Mr. Cuthbert, to understand a little bit about what was going on here. I also accompanied a resident to his home in Sunshine to look at the damage that was caused. And in his case, his door had actually been taken off its hinges, and his home was left unsecured for as long as 6 days. So these are the kind of stories that I was hearing at the time. I observed an August 8th interview, and in the August 8th interview is when Staff Sergeant Shardlow indicated that he didn't know who was going to pay the bills for the damaged property. Didn't know if it would be the RCMP or the municipal government or the provincial government. So this was news to me because I thought that it was quite clear that everybody had been told to submit the receipts and then they would get them processed. On August 22nd, I met with Rick Fraser and I raised this with him. I said, we've got some serious concerns here because lots of people have significant bills and they're not getting them paid, and there doesn't seem to be a clear path forward. So I raised this privately with Minister Fraser 2 weeks ago. So I just want you to know I'm trying to do things behind the scenes in the right way. It's only when we can't seem to get any progress that we have to have meetings like this. On August the 26th, I also, in the intervening period, called the town and called the Prime Minister's office as well to find out who was responsible for this. The indication I got from the federal government is that because the RCMP contracts to the provincial government, if there is any compensation that ought to be paid, it needs to be paid by the provincial government. So I've talked to the town. The town did not give the order for the RCMP to enter people's homes. So I think it kind of narrows down who's ultimately going to be responsible for this. Now I do want to just confirm for you, I got a letter from the commander of K Division sent to Lee Cuthbert, our property rights advocate, because after when he had sent a message, or he sent a letter because he was concerned about what had occurred here. And I'll just summarize what he said. If you, we have a copy of the letter. I think we ran out of them, but we're more than happy to get you a copy if you're interested. But here's the gist of what the RCMP response was. It seems to be that the actions were based on a general state of emergency in High River and the urgency of the unfolding disaster. Deputy Commissioner McGowan compared their actions to the measures taken in other large-scale emergencies, such as the Slave Lake fire. Their position is that the firearm seizures were incidental to emergency-related home entries. He did not mention specific reliance on the Emergency Management Act, but he did say this: it should be clear that we did not take operational direction from any elected officials or public service employees to enter into private homes and to remove personal property. So to summarize what that says is that it wasn't any elected official or anyone in the EOC that was giving direction to the RCMP. So we still don't know where the order came from for the RCMP, and I hope that we are able to get some answers to that. Just continuing forward on this, yesterday, Staff Sergeant Ian Shardlow gave an interview to the Calgary Herald where he reiterated that he still doesn't know who is going to pay the bills for this, whether it will be the RCMP, whether it will be the province, or whether it will be the municipality. And also yesterday, to a great surprise to all of us, the Premier said she was unaware of any damage. So, we have provided some forms for anyone who would like to help us make the Premier aware of some of the damage that was caused. We'd like to hear your personal story. We'd like to know how much you have submitted by way of bill so that she can start keeping a tally of how much she's going to have to add to the provincial disaster recovery bill to be able to compensate you. So if you fill out those forms, I will make them available to Lee Cuthbert, who's taken an interest in this file and wants to hear from you. Also, I will give that to the Premier's office. I will also give it to the Public Complaints Commission, who is investigating the actions of the RCMP. And I'll give you an idea of the kind of letters that I have already received, so that they just need to be nice and short. But let me give you an idea of what we have heard. When we were allowed into our home on June the 29th, 2013, after the June 20th flood in High River, it was disheartening to find that our front door had been kicked in and left unlocked. The door was hanging on by one hinge, and the frame of the door on the side where the hinges was split right away from the frame. The locks on the other side were not operational, and parts of the locks were left lying on the floor. In addition, there was mud left on the rugs and hardwood floors, as well as the bedroom carpet and on our bedding. This not only jeopardized the security of the home with respect to potential vandalism to our home, theft of our personal property, as well as identity theft, but also presented a safety hazard when entering or leaving the home. It was therefore necessary to have a temporary door installed, since the ordering of a new permanent door would take 3 or 4 weeks. What is most puzzling is why the front door had to be kicked down, when it would have been a lot cheaper, safer, and easier to simply break the glass insert on the door and unlock it for an estimated cost of $300 to fix. It's also puzzling why such action was needed in a neighborhood made up of primarily retired senior citizens. It was to turn off the water valve in the basement of the house that could have been a lot done from the main water line. What's also puzzling is the fact that they registered in Nanton, as well as with the Red Cross in Blackie, they had evacuated from their home. The cost to install the temporary door was $1,116.94. At a later date, the permanent door was ordered with a 3 to 4 week delivery date. The price was $2,005.50, bringing the total cost to $3,122.44, for which we are filing a claim for reimbursement. So I imagine some of this sounds pretty familiar to the folks in this room. And we would love to have every single one of you write your story, tell us how much it costs, so that we can be an advocate on your behalf. I think it's pretty clear that these dollars need to be paid, that you need to be compensated. Now, the other individual I want to introduce to you here, because I know that there were many of you who got your door broken down that also had firearms. And my understanding from reading again Staff Sergeant Chardlow's responses in the media is that most of the 539 firearms that were taken have been returned. We'd still like to hear from you if you're having any trouble getting your firearms back, so that we can be an advocate for you. But Dennis Young is here from the National Firearms Association. He's got a word or two he wants to say about the issue. And also Richard Fritz is a lawyer here. For those of you who are afraid to maybe speak up, we know that there is always a danger if you're in a position as a whistleblower where you may have to deal with the RCMP, so you can also do that privately with them. But let me turn it over to Dennis. You can say a word or two, and then we'll get to what I really would like to get to, which is listening from you. So Dennis.
I'm Dennis Young. I'm from Airdrie, Alberta, and I'm representing Canada's National Firearms Association tonight. I'm the Alberta director. I was elected in January for a 2-year term, and our phone started to ring about June 20th, I believe. And we've been trying to figure out what went on here and why it went on here. Just a bit of my background. I worked for 13 years on Parliament Hill. I was the researcher for Gary Brightprice, who is well known on dealing with firearms issues. And over that time, I filed over 600 access to information requests, so I've been busy doing that, trying to find out what happened in High River as well. I'm also an ex-member of the RCMP. I'll have you know, within 5 years of service, I never kicked in one door. We're here tonight to continue our investigation, and I've learned so much tonight just coming here, and I'm glad I did. I say we're here tonight because I'm here with my friend Tony Bernardo from the Canadian Shooting Sports Association, and we've been working together for years trying to protect the rights of law-abiding gun owners in Canada and get rid of Bill C-68. And we've got a lot of work still left to do. What we really need to know is we really need you to fill out those forms. We need to know what happened in High River. We need to know why the RCMP and the military were directed to kick in your doors. It just doesn't make any sense to anyone. So, who ordered the military to break in the doors? The letter we got from the K Division commander says that nobody ordered it. Well, that's not true. I was in the RCMP, and I didn't do much that I wasn't ordered to do. And if I did, I got in trouble. And somebody should get in trouble. we would have been fired immediately. Why didn't they break into all the doors? Danielle says they broke into 1,900 doors. It was in the, there's 1,900 damage complaints. They didn't break into all the doors. Why did they stop breaking into the doors? Danielle says it's because you complain. Because people complain. Because it got into the media. And I'm glad to see the media here tonight. Because this story needs to be told. This can happen in High River. It can happen in Airdrie. It can happen. It happened in Slave Lake. It can happen in any community in Canada. And everybody needs to hear this story and needs to hear your stories. How did they pick the homes to break into? I don't know. Why did other communities not get their homes broken into? Something went wrong in High River. Somebody in charge made a mistake, a big mistake.